Hey y'all, ahlan wa sahlan, bienvenidos. Welcome back to my channel. Just so you know, that's Arabic and that's Spanish. I am learning those, but I want everyone to know that they're welcome here, no matter what language you speak, what culture you're from, just welcome. Thank you for checking my channel out. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't been posting as frequently. For like the past year or two, I haven't been. So again, I've said this every video. It seems like I'm trying my best, trying to get back to a normal schedule. There's just been a lot of changes in my life, so trying to find a better routine. But it kind of ties into what I want to talk about today. Busy schedule. I'm feeling it. You may be feeling it. I understand it's the life we live, especially in America. Busy, busy, busy. It's like you get an award for being busy. We gotta chill here. So I want to talk about when you're pressed for time and spending time with Jesus. So how can we spend time with God, spend time with the Lord, and even on a busy schedule? So yeah, I want to give some practical tips of what I'm doing, learning, and I want to point out, as I was praying about this and trying to get ideas, this was stuff for myself as well. I'm still trying to incorporate some, because I've been pressed this last week, started a new job and all these things. So yes, it's also for myself. Just want to point that out. Okay, so first of all, I want to explain in my view, why spending time with God is important, why that intentional time with God is important, the no distraction time, the focused time with God, where you can really sit down with Him. Because when we think about it, God's the one who improves us, who transforms us, who sanctifies us, who makes us better and who we're supposed to be, who we're called to be. So if we're not spending time with God, it's going to be hard for us to really become who He's created us to be. Spending time in His Word and learning what kind of character we should have, praying to God and gaining wisdom and how we should live our lives, and just things like that, worshiping God, because that's what we're literally made to do, is worship God, be in community with God. And also, if we want, as Christians, we're called to be like Jesus. We're called to be holy like Jesus. How can we do that if we don't know God well, or if we're not getting to know God more and more and getting to know Jesus? And that happens when we spend time with Him. In time spent with God, He can break off bondages and fully free us, deliver us from so many things. He can baptize us in the Holy Spirit. He can give us prophetic word and utilize our giftings. He can speak to us. There's a lot of things that he wants to do in us and through us, even to walk in the calling that He has for us. We need Him to guide us and to lead us. But how can He lead us when we're not listening for Him? Because we didn't spend that time with Him to listen, to know what He wants us to do. We're distracted. We're doing all these other things. We're listening to all these other voices, even a lot of times our own voices in our head, for the to-do list that we have, which I keep doing, and Jesus help me, But we want to listen to Him to know how to follow Him, to follow His guidance and His voice and His leadership. Just know that it's very important. And I'll say for myself, when I was first kind of trying to get close to God, I was reading devotionals and things. I had distractions around me. I would read the devotionals in the kitchen. I would eat my breakfast. I wasn't fully focused. And it took that much longer. Years of doing that, it took me that much longer to get closer to God, because I didn't have that alone time with Him, focused, really wanting to listen, knowing that I can hear, studying the Bible, things like that, opening up to God fully. Who wants to open up, when in the middle of class to God, unless you're writing, obviously, but probably don't do that. But I'm just saying, when we have times just alone with God, we can open up to Him, feel free to, things like that. It wasn't until I started to actually have that focused, intentional time, opening up to Him, that I really became closer to Him, eventually got baptized in the Spirit and things like that. And it really transformed my life. So I really feel like this is important. And even when we look at Jesus's life, because that's who we want to be like, Jesus is God, right? And he even spent time with the Father by himself. He would go off by himself and spend time in prayer. And he would tell the disciples, pray in this time. Obviously we're human. Sometimes, there are tough times, but it is important. So we even see just with Jesus' life. So all that being said, now we know the importance and all that stuff. Now let's talk about practicality, okay? Talk about these steps. I understand we're busy, so we're going to try to find a way to still spend time with God, even amidst reality, right? Work, class, kids, marriage, social life, the whole 9 yards. So I get it, believe me. So first step, I'm sure you've heard it before. I know I have been told this many times, but cut out any unnecessary things in your life. So if you can watch Netflix for 5 hours a day, you can take one of those hours and spend time with God instead. So kind of rearrange your schedule so that once an hour is cut off from Netflix or an hour is cut off from social media or anything like that, you can just give it to God, whether that's in the morning. I prefer the morning, but wherever you can in your day where you can give it to God instead. Even I'm thinking about this for myself, and I had to go through this in college. If you're in too many social activities, whether that's clubs in school, committees, even church clubs, either even just hanging out with friends, trying to hang out with friends every day or go out to eat and things like that, maybe one of those has to be cut so that you're able to spend time with God every day, even if it's not a whole hour. I just say hour. That's kind of like what my goal time is. But the importance of God is higher than any other person. So if we want to get closer to our friends, we really need God to do that. So our ultimate should be getting closer to God, and then comes other relationships. And when we think about it, when we're close to God, it elevates these other relationships. And when we're not close to God, these relationships can't thrive like they're supposed to, can't reach their full potential. So I think even cutting out some social gatherings, if you have to really make time for God, is worth it because he's our ultimate source of joy and fulfillment. So things like that, Netflix, social media, social things, yeah. May Jesus help us all. Another idea, some of you may be doing this already or may have done it in school. I know I did. And I might need to get back to this, but even like meal prepping. So like we cook dinner every day, namely my husband cooks dinner every day because I'm doing other stuff. But even that takes like maybe an hour or so. So if we were to meal prep on the weekend instead, or maybe meal prep a few times a week so we don't have to cook every day, that's an hour back in our time that we can give to God in the morning or whatever time instead. So I'm thinking about that even could help. Okay, another practical way. So the first one was cutting things out. The second practical way, it's obvious, but maybe not. So even just waking up earlier. So I'm a big person on sleep. I like to get 8 to 9 hours, usually around 8 hours if possible. This past week, I've been failing, getting like 7.5 or 6 or 7 or 5. Like it's just been varying. So it's been really disrupting my just my behavior, like more irritable, more cranky and not myself. Don't really have the energy to talk to people. The whole 9 yards, kind of have to force it. So I don't like that. So I understand if like you're already getting 4 hours of sleep, can't really wake up earlier. I get that. But if you're getting 10 hours, 9 hours, even 8.5 hours or 8 hours, it could be worth to get closer to God. It could be worth cutting, your sleep time to wake up earlier, or going to bed earlier to wake up earlier, or going to bed later to spend that time with God at night or something like that. Like it could be worth, depending on how much sleep you get, it could be worth cutting some of that just to wake up earlier or go to bed later to spend time with God. Another way that I've been working on as well is like preparing your breakfast beforehand, or eating a breakfast where like it doesn't take a while to cook. I used to make a breakfast that took me 30 to 45 minutes to cook every day, and it was just oatmeal in the microwave. I don't know what I was doing, but that's how long it took. I think part of it was me just getting out of bed was part of that, but even like right now I've been making overnight oats, so it's an easy throw in, put in the fridge the night before, and then I can just grab and go. So I have more time in the morning to spend with God, or like doing things where you can get ready faster. So planning your clothes or thinking about your clothes the night before of what you could wear, or just having a faster routine, like facial or wash routine or something like that. Things like that, where you can cut your morning routine down so you can have more time with God. Third idea, so the first one was cutting out things. The second one was adjusting maybe your morning and night routines. And then the third one, I would say possibly you can spend your lunchtime with God. So if you're at a job where you're eating lunch with your coworkers, and that's good for your career growth and things like that, or you really want that social time, I understand. So this is more so if you're already going to be alone, let's spend some time with God. If you're not doing that in the morning, spend some time with God. Even if you're a student and like you're trying to cram work in, or just trying to do, or like even at your job, if you're trying to cram work in, try to do as much as you can, when we think about it, that sacrifice to spend with God instead is our faith being activated, because we're believing that God will help us in every area in our life, including our schoolwork and our work, when we're growing closer to Him, because He's the one who gives us the wisdom and how to do that and how to manage our time. So if we're willing to cut out some of the work during lunch, when it's when it could be a true break, or cutting out some of that schoolwork or whatever it is, and just spend time with the Lord during that time instead, that's activating our faith and growing us closer to God and showing Him that we do want to be near Him and be close. It's kind of like having a meal with the Lord, just like having a meal with friends. For me, I find that sometimes distracting, but I think I'm still working on this. If I see it like as if I'm having a meal with friends, because for me, that I like eating with friends. It's a cool social time for me. I don't know. I just really like to do that. So if I'm able to really be focused on God in that time, like He's my friend across the table as I'm eating, instead of like thinking about all these other thoughts, I think it could really be a good intentional time. Or if you have a whole hour, you can eat within the first 30 minutes, and then the second 30 minutes can be spent with God or something like that. I think it could be really, I think that could be a really good use of time if you're really pressed for time in the morning or in the evening or something like that. The fourth one I struggle with, but my husband really be doing it for like some real stuff, but is having time with God in the car. So if you have a long commute, like right now I drive about an hour to work. If you have like an hour or 2 hours even, a commute or something like that, you can really utilize that time. You can get all the steps in, like worship, listening to the Bible, and prayer, like all of it, especially if you're in the car by yourself. Prayer can be written. I like to write my prayers a lot, but it can really, because I'm working on this, speaking out loud my prayer, and it could be really powerful. Speaking your prayer out loud, and speaking in tongues or different things like that. You can easily do that in the car. There's no one listening to you. There's no one around. As long as you're not too distracted from the road, obviously follow the law. But especially if you know where you're going, it can be really nice. You can turn on some worship music from the radio or Spotify or whatever it is that you use, and really sing your heart out, because I'd be doing it. And you can listen to the Bible. I really like Streetlight Bible they're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. Streetlight Bible is really amazing for me, just how they do it. So you can listen to the Bible and really study the Word there. If you're not too distracted, for me, this is like if you're really pressed for time, you really can't do any of the other things I mentioned above, you can still do this, even if it's 5 to 30 minutes of a commute time, even if it's like on your way to work or school and on your way back, you do both. It's kind of split up. That to me is worth it. I've seen when we drove from Indiana to Florida, while I was struggling to stay awake, my husband, Joshua, he was praying to God, spending that time, and God really was working in him. Like the Holy Spirit was speaking through him, was like casting out things. Like it was a wild thing. He told me when we stopped, and I was like, what in the world? Didn't you have to focus on the highway? How did you do that? But so you really can. And I felt it before too. I will say, be a little cautious, because for me, I remember not that long ago, I was spending time with God in the car as I was driving, and I was listening to Apostle Catherine Crick's YouTube. So she, with the Holy Spirit working through her and His power working through her, is casting out demons and breaking bondages and all that stuff. So I'm listening to that because I'm trying to get everything else out of me. I break every bondage and all that stuff, but the things are manifesting in me as I'm driving. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to pull over. Can't handle this. My friend ended up praying with me when I pulled over and things like that. So wouldn't recommend to go that far, but that's one of the reasons I wouldn't say to do the car if you have another choice, because you really want God to be able to move in you in any way he wants to. And car is kind of limited, but just to show that it can really be powerful even in the car. So I recommend that as well if you need to. And lastly, if you're so pressed for time, like you really can't yank out a 30-minute time with God, an hour time with God, it's okay. Let's take a deep breath. It's okay, especially if it's like every now and then, like if tomorrow you have a huge trip or a huge training session, you have to wake up super early and hurry up and get to work. Whatever it is, it's okay. Even if you can do 5 to 15 minutes with God, it can really be powerful in that time. I would just recommend I want to point this out. This is for myself as well. I'm telling myself these things, reminding myself of these things, trying to take off the shame and the guilt of not spending as much time as I used to, and reminding myself I can do these things. So just transparency here. It's not just telling you, I'm telling me, okay? But I would just recommend letting that time, if it's a short time, be very, very intentional and focused. So I will admit, for me, especially I do my time in the morning and I'm tired and I'm just trying to wake up. Sometimes I'd spend like 20 minutes just sitting there just thinking, because I'm still like almost waking up and I'm just getting distracted in all my thoughts. So I'm working on, being focused right away, doing what I have to wake up or whatever. So I would recommend try not to be like that in this short time, because you only have a short time. So whatever you have to do, whether that's splashing water on your face or if you're tired or something like that, try to get focused and be intentional in that time. Basically. And even you don't have to feel rushed to do, for me, I like to do worship, read the Bible, and pray, all of them. But sometimes I really am diving deep in the worship time, or really diving deep in the Bible studying, really diving deep in prayer, or whatever it is, or listening to God. So don't feel rushed or pressured to have to do all these different things in your quiet time. Sometimes just sitting with the Lord and meditating on a verse. Sometimes just listening to a song over and over again and worshiping God. Sometimes just really pouring your heart out to God. It is good enough. And I know when I feel rushed, I'm not as focused, because I'm like, I got to do the next things. I'm just checking off boxes to hurry up and make sure I get all this stuff in my prayer time. But it kind of takes you out of that intimacy with God. So just focus on, let God, Holy Spirit, lead you in that quiet time, and just do the first thing that comes to mind in terms of getting closer to God, and just stay focused and intentional. It's okay. We out here pressed for time, busy schedule. We're doing our best. But thank you all for listening to these tips and possible practical ways you can get closer to God when you have a busy schedule. I hope it was helpful. And I'm sure you've already thought of some of them, but I hope they were very helpful and something that we can all implement together, okay? Even drop comments on what you're going to try to do this week. I might drop a comment for myself. May God help us. And I'll see y'all next time.